welcome to our newest podcast, TrendSpotting. So in our podcast, we're going to be talking about all of the hot topics that go around on our island. And recently, it's been about the Manila machete incident.
Right,
So
machete madness.
Machete madness, nice.
Yeah. And we have a lot to talk about today with that. And this podcast is the first live podcast that we do. So if you're catching us on Facebook, make sure we want you to engage in the discussion. TrendSpotting is our regular Friday show where we grab comments and criticism from you viewers at home and put it on KUM News. And we are integrating that with now a Thursday podcast where you can send the comments early so we can get more of that discussion generated and get the pulse of what you guys feel at home. And as Asha said, today we are talking about the machete incident in Manila, which the certain people said was maybe we blew out of proportion.
Right, but I guess let's start at the beginning, and I got to give props to Sabrina Salas-Mantanani who broke this story. I remember it was close to 5 on was it Monday or Tuesday?
I think it was Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I need to make sure I get that right.
Right. Yeah, don't blow it out of proportion.
Right.
So can you give us just walk us through the beginning?
So Tuesday, we got a message about an attack in Manila involving people with machetes, and they said that Senator Judy Gutherts was one of the individuals that was victimized. So immediately I picked up the phone, I called Senator Gutherts, I asked her, are you okay? And she went on and she told me just over the phone about what happened. She described the scene, it being about 4 to 5 young men who came out of an apartment area and started hitting several cars with a machete. And obviously she was very scared. She was, shocked about it. And she said police were on the scene. They arrived very quickly. They took one of them into custody. And then, we got off the phone and we sent our photographer up to Manila. Then he shot the interview with Senator Gutherts over the phone, and then sent the interview back. And then I watched it, and again she reiterated the same thing she told me over the phone. And she also, said, enough is enough. We need elected leaders. The FSM community need to come together and find solutions to the violence. And so we reported that out, and then was waiting for a call from the Guam Police Department to get more information. And all night long, we didn't hear anything from GPD. The following day, we did our starting lineup show. That was Wednesday, from Manila, from the scene. And that's when we got information from Paul Tapao, who said that Emmanuel Resalop and Jordan Rechalop were both arrested for what had happened. And then there was an emergency meeting at Adelup.
Yeah, so there was an emergency meeting at Adelup at 9:30, and in this meeting was Senator Jose Pito Terlahi, Senator Clint Rigel, Melissa Savars, the executive, what is she? The president of the Mayor's Council of Guam. Also, Manila Mayor Alan Ogata was there. I think the interpreter from the court was there, and the FSM Consul Teresa Philippin, the governor. I think that was Chief of Police Steve Ignacio. So they basically convened this meeting, and the media, we were sitting outside, and we had actually overheard someone in the meeting. There was a discussion about the media blowing it out of proportion. So we'd already heard that that's what they were saying. So when the meeting broke and people came out, obviously it was one of the first questions that we asked, and Mayor Melissa Savars from Dedido said, she felt like the media blew it out of proportion, because she said that, and I think it hinged on a word that Judy Guthert used. She said there was a gang of young men.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if she said that to
I'm not,
No, she just said there was a group of
young men. So,
about 4 to 5 young men.
And so Mayor Savars said, the media made it seem like there was a gang thing, but it was really just a couple people. So
That's a lot of people.
I thought it was just kind of stupid. I mean, when you have a situation like that, obviously, I feel like the governor's office is over concerned with anybody looking bad. But, the political thing to do would have just been to talk about, what a tragedy this was and what an egregious occurrence it was, and not to really shoot the messenger. I mean, we're just the messenger.
Right.
All we did was air Judy Guthert's interrupted interview. And, you know, she was an eyewitness, and not just an eyewitness, a victim of this attack. So when I heard Mayor Savares say that, I was really disappointed. And so we went into the meeting. You know, one of the media people asked the governor, and she said, yeah, she felt like we blew it out of proportion because we had heard that it was 5 or 6, and you know, Chief Ignacio said that 2 were arrested, but he also said that there were 3 to 4 individuals involved. And I thought it was a little premature because, you know, and I just came from interviewing people in that area, and they say when they hear the sirens, everybody runs. So I didn't really appreciate the way the governor and the chief of police kind of just discounted the victim's story.
What
It was almost like
exactly-
victim shaming.
What exactly was out of proportion? The number of
They were saying that
people
the
that were
media said
involved,
5 or 6, but
so
it was
we're just
really
talking
3 or
about a
4.
number.
Yeah, so
But you know
that's
what?
what
I
it
think
was.
even if it was just one person that was
And it
out
was
there
the
carrying
logic-
a machete
yeah.
and hacking up 4 or
Right.
5, there was 7 cars. I mean,
Yeah,
that
the
in
logic
of-
was just
of
crazy
itself is-
because they were trying to say like, oh, it wasn't like a mob of people attacking cars. It was like an altercation that started in a store parking lot and with these guys who had machetes, and
And they
then
happened to
That's
just
still
cross into
crazy.
they
the-
happened just to cross into
and
traffic.
which to me is ridiculous because we live in like this day and age where I guess crime on Guam is at this all-time high where it's so it just happens all the time that we expect that type of thing, and we're kind of numb to the effects of how serious that really is. But I mean, the reality of the situation is, dude, there were like 2 or 3 or 4 people wielding
yeah,
weapons
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
in a street,
Yeah.
hitting
Somebody could've gotten
people that were
seriously
not
hurt.
involved
And
in
so-
any kind of drunken.
Right.
They were saying that we blew it out of proportion because I'm just paraphrasing. Judy Guther's made it seem like this group of people were just like there to assault cars, but they weren't there to assault cars. They were there because they were having a big altercation, and then they assaulted cars. Which, I mean, when you start off blaming the media, it's just a bad move because everything after that, it's like, okay, we blew it out of proportion. The obvious follow-up question is, well, do you think that it's not a big deal? And then they were forced to say, no, it is a big deal. So which one is it? Did we blow it out of proportion, or is it a big deal? And I think it's a big deal.
hence
and
why
to-
they
and to
held
say-
the meeting.
That, oh, just because they were fighting and then they went into the street and attacked cars, you know,
Got a lot of comments.
that's just,
And then we have a lot of people. Thank you for joining us, commenting. We have John Robert Evangelista. So we take that the crimes on Guam are quote unquote exaggerated.
Right.
I see no reason why former senator would exaggerate her story. She has been part of the island in all levels.
She was a former
yeah, she's a former
Yeah.
chief
director
of GPD.
Department of Public Safety.
Right, right.
Exactly. And you know, guys, we have so many comments. We're gonna get
Yeah.
through as many as we
I
can.
spoke to Senator Guthrie, as a matter of fact,
After,
after you told
right,
me
yeah.
about what had happened at the press conference, and she was like, well, they weren't there, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
She was there, and you know she still stands by what she said. There were
And
about 4 to 5 people. And the other thing I found interesting was the fact that in the press release from the Guam Police Department, it made no mention of this biker that supposedly was struck by the machete.
Yeah, and I
And-
just came from Manila and I interviewed a resident, and he said that a biker. I know the guy's name's Dean
Biker
Spark-
bicycle.
A bicycler,
Yeah.
a guy who rides his bike around there, was slashed in the leg, and he was thrown rocks. And
Right, and it was not in the GPD press release. And I asked Paul before we started this podcast, that was not in the press release. What can you tell me? And his response was, well, there was no indication.
so maybe the guy didn't call the ambulance or call 911, or maybe he just self-treated. But you know, I think getting caught up in this argument over it was 4 or 5 or it was 3 or 4, it's really ridiculous. And I was very offended, not personally, but I was offended that they would victim shame Judy Gutherts like that, because I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Judy Gutherts or Judy Cruz or Judy Wampat or whoever. If you have a victim coming forward and telling a story, an eyewitness account, then I think that's where you start from. You don't start your whole thing by scuttling the victim, and it's just crazy. And especially coming from a Democrat administration, I really expected more. It would have been so easy for the governor to come out and do what she did, secondarily, which was, I mean, God, Judy must have, been freaking out. This is really terrible. Instead of coming out first and, blaming the media. And because obviously, I mean, the governor's very insulated from the reality out here in the streets because she lives in an affluent area that's probably safe. She has security that follows her around 24/7. So maybe she doesn't really grasp the conditions that everyone else is living in out here. And when you go and say that it's blown out of proportion, it's exaggerated, then it really makes it seem like there's nothing going on here. And everybody knows home invasions, rapes, robberies. There's just a lot of crime.
I mean, if you guys follow any of our social media,
Right.
you know that stuff is going on out there.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
Not with just this isolated incident, I guess, but with other things happening in the island. And there's many different issues. And this is one, I think, putting this at the forefront. You see in the comments throughout our Facebook and our Twitter, so many people talking about how this is not a singular situation, that this has happened before. I mean, I don't know if we've confirmed that, whether or not some of the perpetrators
same
were
guys
involved.
They did another machete attack.
In
Yeah,
Dedido, right?
right.
Which is Marriott
But not
Tavares'
only
village.
that,
So
They don't get
just-
blown out of proportion, man.
Like Wrestle-Up and Retchalop, their rap sheets. I took a look at those yesterday, and it was actually in the story. So Wrestle-Up, he had a previous arrest. He was in and out of jail. He came out of jail actually, I think it was in January. Retchalop just got out of jail 1 month ago, and he has been in and out of jail since 2012.
How do you get
So-
arrested like that many times and not serve a sentence? And what is going on in
Oh
the
no, yeah,
courts?
he did.
I mean,
yeah,
what's
and that's
going on in
that's
the
the
courts?
thing
Really,
that
I think
Senator Guthard said.
we really need to
get the judiciary involved
look
in
at
this.
what the hell's going on in the courts. I mean, they had a extremely high number of felonies committed on felony release. Why are we releasing felons? Why are we releasing these repeat violent offenders? I mean, GPD, kudos to GPD. They work hard, they arrest people, and I get a lot of complaints from officers. They say, hey man, we took this guy down. I mean, cases where you have someone who's accused of raping a relative, and the judge sends them right back into the same conditions.
That was one of the
ridiculous.
things in one of the Crime Times, the Facebook live shows, as part of Starting Lineup, when we interviewed the chief of police up at Tizen, and I think it was before he was confirmed or shortly, it was definitely before he was confirmed, and he was talking about all these different meetings that he has, and one of the meetings is with the mayors, and one of the concerns that the mayors brought up was that a lot of the people that they see in the neighborhood are people that GPD arrests, puts them in, and then they're right back out. And the mayor's like, it's like this cycle where they're arrested, they go in, they come right back out, and it's just never ending.
Right,
You know,
we
that's
see
a-
it. We see it in the media because he's like, someone
The
gets
same
arrested, then a couple months later they get arrested. Like, oh, I thought this guy just
See
got
that
arrested.
again?
The
Yeah.
prosecution process is it's kind of weird or convoluted. We really don't know what happens in those steps. We have a good comment from Dr. Burechi Mori, who says, I want to know if they are Guamanians or FSM citizens since the consul general is there. I don't know, maybe that's...
Right,
we'll
and this
find
is
out.
another
And
issue
that's a tough issue because a lot of times in the comments, one of the most prevalent answers that we see are people saying deport.
Deport. Yeah.
But the reality of that situation is, if they're born here,
We can.
Where-
What are you talking about?
we can't.
Yeah.
So
And it's not like the
it's not
local
even
government can
just
do that.
a FSM issue in general, right? Like I think we have another story maybe coming up tonight about Chamorros involved in a similar type of altercation, right?
Right.
So I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of like a respect and disciplinary and a prevention type of issue, right?
Right.
Like, are we doing enough to curtail that type of action from
Obviously not.
being attractive to people?
Yeah.
Like,
But what kind of people are attracted to attacking people with machetes? I really don't understand why we need to make a special response. And in that meeting, one of the takeaways was the governor said, "Hey, we're going to start meeting regularly. I want all of the FSM and freely associated states, faith-based. Nobody says church anymore. Church leaders to come out and let's get the civic leaders to talk to these people." And what I don't understand is like people like these Wrestle-Up, I don't think they can be reached. I don't think they go to church. I don't think they're going to listen to a pastor or a priest. I don't think they're going to listen to a community leader. I think that we need to address this problem without any special touches. I mean, Chamorros do this kind of thing. Lock them up. Chookies,
Yeah.
FSM do it.
Yeah,
Lock them up.
doesn't
That's not.
matter
I don't
what
see why we
race,
need to
ethnicity.
roll out the red carpet and try and solve this problem like the nice way. I think we need to cut in and address the problem right here. And we can have outreach village meetings, but the other thing that I find disturbing is they keep saying this. It takes a village. It's a community thing. Well, I think the community's stretched pretty thin. I mean, we're doing neighborhood watches. We're all watching out for each other. At what point do we stop having to do everything and expect the government to do their damn job.
That's a great question.
It's crazy.
One thing, here's a comment from Jorna Ballin. This has been going on for a long time.
It has, yeah.
And you actually spoke with some people. I don't know if we can get that video, but you spoke with Ken Cruz. He's a resident in Mangilao.
Right.
And
We
he,
have that video.
yeah, if we could roll that video now.
Governor, with her thoughts on her report from the police. Now her saying that you guys blew it out of proportion. Why don't she get her information from the people that were victimized? And see how that affects her. Right? Because what you guys are saying, this is not out of proportion. It is dangerous.
So the Senator Guthers said there were 4 to 5 people. GPD arrested 2 people. Do you think there are people that were involved in the incident that got away?
I feel yes. Because like Dr. Guthers said, when they heard the police, they just scattered. So who's to say, right? Who's right? The cops or, us that witnessed it? I mean, for me, I witnessed the cut on my friend, and the hits from the rock to his face.
So the Senator Guthers said there were 4 to 5 people.
Okay, you can watch the full interview with Mr. Cruz. Again, he is a Mangilao resident.
Right. And so I just came from Mangilao, and I interviewed Mr. Cruz. I interviewed John Camacho. He's a cook at Ron's Diner. I interviewed Young Park, who is the owner of New Campus store. And I interviewed Brian Song, whose family owns Best Store. And they were all consistent in, first of all, agreeing that this wasn't blown out of proportion, and also in agreeing that there are young men that drink often days at a time in these little pockets of jungle. They throw their beer cans everywhere. You'll see that tonight on the news. And they're very dangerous.
It's already on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Okay, so, and they cause trouble. And so the owners of these businesses are worried about the safety of their customers. Their customers are worried about their own safety.
And some of them don't even want to come back. That's
Yeah,
so sad.
and they've tried asking them politely, but they get ignored or they get yelled at, and they're just scared. And
Josie, we have a good comment from Josie Alfred here. So this is a topic now. Give it a week later.
Right.
Are we going to see results? What do you guys think needs to happen? Like, are we looking for a change at the executive level?
No,
or
it's very
a
simple, and
procedural police level.
right,
Or-
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, let's increase patrols. Let's get the cops to go out there and to get out of their police cars and go into these areas. And can you just drink in public and cause trouble?
I mean, it's
I have
such
to say though, with the police, they are stretched so
Yeah.
Of
thin.
course. Right.
And I
More
know
patrol
that.
officers
But
per-
who promised to increase public safety? And where's the
Well,
delivery
they
of
are
that
going to
promise?
be hiring new police officers.
Right.
We're going to be doing something with them on prime time next week. But I think it lies with the judiciary of Guam. I mean, if they're the ones who are giving these sentences, maybe they need to be, stricter or longer or.
Right.
or
Well,
harsher.
I think we need to get the police. I think we have to draft recently retired cops, and we've done it before. An emergency declaration. We had an emergency meeting. We need to get the funding. We need to hire more officers. Or in a stopgap measure, let's bring some officers who are retired back on the force. We just need more cops out there. They need to be out there patrolling. When you see cops, you don't want to cause trouble. And they need to go into these areas. And I think that's step one. What the governor wants to do with the outreach in the villages, that's more of a long-term solution. But, when I had the Malfunction TV show, I did a whole series on this same topic, and this was 4 years ago. I interviewed John Howard, I interviewed Deacon Atoy, and these are all FSM community leaders. And it was the same thing, the viral videos, rewire slits, it's crazy. And they were trying to do this long-term approach of engaging the youth in sports, in church-related activities, and they're trying, but it's obviously it's an uphill
They're
battle.
still doing that.
And they're still doing it. Yeah, they're unsung heroes, but something's not working. And I don't know if looking at this as a FSM problem is really the right solution, because that's how we're looking at it. We're looking at it like, oh, there's some mysterious family structure in the FSM that nobody but FSM people can understand, and I don't think that's really the case. I think that in the islands we've all suffered from a breakdown in the family structure because of westernization. Our families aren't what they used to be because everyone's got to work, or there's divorces, families are broken. So I think we need to stop looking at this as people of FSM descent or people from the FAS, they're different, so we have to solve this differently. We have to do this, we have to do that. No, I think we're all human at the end of the day, and whether it's Chamorros or Chukis, I think this calls for like an immediate kind of solution, and not long-term village meetings. I just don't see that as keeping us safe right now.
I agree. I don't think it's a FSM or solely an FSM type of issue. It's definitely a Guam issue, right? An island issue. Every village has its share of
rapscallions.
Issues that it has to deal with and get with, and we gotta stop turning a blind eye and just saying, well, that's because we have all these FSM people here, and that's the reason why this village is messed up. Because the fact of the matter is not. There's many Chamorro families who, or Chamorro
Chamorros
people
are doing
who do the
dirty
same
too,
thing, who are doing just
Yeah.
as bad stuff, and that's unfortunate. But we all have to identify that, hey, these types of things are happening, and we need to curtail it somehow, whether it be with harsher penalties or longer prison sentences or better prosecution, but whatever it may be, like now it's there and it exists, and it's not a exaggerated issue.
I mean, we had this with the rebar, the slingshot, the other machete attacks. There's always these like galvanizing incidents, which are kind of rallying cries, and then you're right. The comment was right. Everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna do something. Oh, we're gonna have these meetings." Oh, and then 2 weeks later, something else happens, and like,
Push
"Oh,
to the
look, a
side.
butterfly."
Right. Well, when is the meeting in Manila? Because
Next
that was
week.
the first meeting, right?
Right. Yeah. And then that meeting in Manila, like, who's gonna show up? Are the young men who go and want to attack people with machetes and drink in the jungle, are they going to be there? I don't think
Well,
so.
it'll probably be the residents,
Right.
that are there, and they're going to express their concerns about how they don't feel safe and what they feel needs to be done. Kind of like a listening tour?
Something like that. I don't know.
We have another comment here from John Robert Evangelist. He's got a lot of good comments in our thread today. Why don't they utilize other local law enforcement agencies to help with public safety?
Yeah.
Utilize Guam Customs,
Right.
Marshals, Port,
Yeah.
Airport.
That's kind of what I was saying, But when we had Mandania, maybe we need a Mandania of like street crime.
Fay
Let's get
ranges.
right, different people from different agencies. That's why I know GPD's short of manpower, but I just don't want to hear that excuse because, hey, we're out here paying taxes, and public safety and education are the two priorities. The priority shouldn't be like hiring 1 million deputy directors or paying political hires underground. The priority should be taking care of the people and making sure we're safe. That's the priority. And education, you know what I mean? And it's just really not a priority. I mean, that administration after administration, all we hear is like, public safety, but at the end of the day, we're just not safe, and a lot of people feel that way. I'm not exaggerating that.
I mean, in the past 2 days, we had a possible kidnapping attempt. We
Seen
had
at Kmart?
a rape of a
15-year-old?
15-year-old girl, the 41-year-old mentor figure, right? So I mean, there are issues. There are definitely things to talk about, and we want to hear from you guys what you guys find to be the most distressing issues on island, and we want to get that conversation started.
Right.
So definitely you can tune into this podcast, TrendSpotting, every Thursday at noon, and catch the rest of our stuff on our social media and digital channels.
We talk about how things used to be, like even working here in Harmon, right? And I've been working here, 13, 14 years. Just in that time, things have really changed. Like, we would hang out in the parking lot, and now, especially if you work at night,
That's right.
you see like young guys roaming around, and they're just I got 5 kids. I know what someone who's looking for trouble looks like, and it's just not safe. Like, I wouldn't send my son out to go run across the street to the store. I wouldn't send my daughter.
Yeah.
So this fantasy that, oh no, Guam is safe, no, it's over exaggerated. It's a bunch of baloney, because it's not. Guam is not safe. It's definitely not as safe as it used to be, and it's not getting any safer. And to say anything contrary to that, you're really just making yourself look stupid,
There's an interesting comment at the bottom from Pat Tiaco.
Palim says, turn Coco's Island into a prison.
The
I don't know if
Alcatraz
it's big
of
enough,
Guam.
man. It might not be big enough.
We need a bigger Cocos.
That's what they did for Australia and Mulligan.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Anyway, I guess that's
Is that it?
Yeah,
I can go
Yes.
more if you want. Let us,
I know we can go more hours more, but we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
We're going to use some of these comments for our trend spotting segment tomorrow, which you can find on our IGTV as well as on our news. So be sure to comment in the comments. Get that situation or get that discussion started. Give us some possible solutions. Well, what do you think needs to happen around the island? And we will catch you next week here on Trend Spotting.